Scene 2. It is evening, after supper. From outside we hear the sound of children playing. The grown-ups, with the exception of Mr. Van Daan, are all in the main room. Mrs. Frank is doing some mending. Mrs. Van Daan is reading a fashion magazine. Mr. Frank is going over business accounts. Dussel, in his dentist's jacket, is pacing up and down, impatient to get into his bedroom. Mr. Van Daan is upstairs, working on a piece of embroidery in an embroidery frame. In his room, Peter is sitting before the mirror, smoothing his hair. As the scene goes on, he puts on his tie, brushes his coat, and puts it on, preparing himself meticulously for a visit from Anne. On his wall are now hung some of Anne's motion picture stars. In her room, Anne too is getting dressed. She stands before the mirror in her slip, trying various ways of dressing her hair. Margot is seated on the sofa, hemming a skirt for Anne to wear. In the main room, Dussel can stand it no longer. He comes over, rapping sharply on the door of his and Anne's bedroom.
No, Mr. Dussel, I am not dressed yet. How is that? How does that look?
Fine.
You didn't even look.
Of course I did. It's fine.
Margot, tell me, am I terribly ugly?
Oh, stop fishing.
No, tell me.
Of course you're not. You've got nice eyes, and a lot of animation, and you're
a little vague, aren't you?
May I come in?
Come in, Mother.
Dr. Dussel's impatient to get in here.
Heavens, he takes the room for himself the entire day.
Anne, dear, you're not going in again tonight to see Peter.
That is my intention.
But you've already spent a great deal of time in there today.
I was in there exactly twice. Once to get the dictionary, and then 3/4 of an hour before supper.
Aren't you afraid you're disturbing him?
Mother, I have some intuition.
Then may I ask you this much, Anne? Please don't shut the door when you go in.
You sound like Mrs. Van Daan.
No, I don't mean to suggest anything wrong. I only wish that you wouldn't expose yourself to criticism, that you wouldn't give Mrs. Van Daan the opportunity to be unpleasant.
Mrs. Van Daan doesn't need an opportunity to be unpleasant.
Everyone's on edge, worried about Mr. Crawler. This is one more thing.
I'm sorry, Mother. I'm going to Peter's room. I'm not going to let Petronella Van Daan spoil our friendship.
Why don't you two talk in the main room? It'd save a lot of trouble. It's hard on Mother having to listen to those remarks from Mrs. Van Daan and not say a word.
Why doesn't she say a word? I think it's ridiculous to take it and take it.
You don't understand Mother at all, do you? She can't talk back. She's not like you. It's just not in her nature to fight back.
Anyway, the only one I worry about is you. I feel awfully guilty about you.
What about?
I mean, every time I go into Peter's room, I have a feeling I'm maybe hurting you. I know if it were me, I'd be wild. I'd be desperately jealous if it were me.
Well, I'm not.
You don't feel badly? Really? Truly, you're not jealous?
Of course I'm jealous. Jealous that you've got something to get up in the morning for. But jealous of you and Peter? No.
Maybe there's nothing to be jealous of. Maybe he doesn't really like me. Maybe I'm just taking the place of his cat. Wouldn't you like to come in with us?
I have a book.
Will you please let me in my room?
Just a minute, dear Mr. Dussel. Well, here I go. To run the gauntlet.
Thank you so much.
My God, look at her. I don't know what good it is to have a son. I never see him. He wouldn't care if I killed myself. Just a minute, Anne. I'd like to say a few words to my son. Do you mind? Peter, I don't want you staying up till all hours tonight. You've got to have your sleep. You're a growing boy, you hear?
Anne won't stay late. She's going to bed promptly at 9. Aren't you, Anne?
Yes, Mother. May we go now?
Are you asking me? I didn't know I had anything to say about it.
Listen for the chimes, Anne, dear.
In my day, it was the boys who called on the girls, not the girls on the boys.
You know how young people like to feel that they have secrets. Peter's room is the only place where they can talk.
Talk? That's not what they called it when I was young.
Aren't they awful? Aren't they impossible? treating us as if we were still in the nursery.
Don't let it bother you. It doesn't bother me.
I suppose you can't really blame them. They think back to what they were like at our age. They don't realize how much more advanced we are. When you think what wonderful discussions we've had. Oh, I forgot. I was going to bring you some more pictures.
Oh, these are fine, thanks.
Don't you want some more? Meep just brought me some new ones.
Maybe later.
I remember when I got that. I won it. I bet Yopi that I could eat 5 ice cream cones. We'd all been playing ping pong. We used to have heavenly times. We'd finish up with ice cream at the Delphi or the Oasis where Jews were allowed. There'd always be a lot of boys. We'd laugh and joke. I'd like to go back to it for a few days or a week. But after that, I know I'd be bored to death. I think more seriously about life now. I want to be a journalist. Or something. I love to write. What do you want to do?
I thought I might go off someplace. Work on a farm or something. Some job that doesn't take much brains.
You shouldn't talk that way. You've got the most awful inferiority complex.
I know I'm not smart.
That isn't true. You're much better than I am in dozens of things. Arithmetic and algebra and... Well, you're a million times better than I am in algebra. You like Margot, don't you? Right from the start you liked her much better than me.
Oh, I don't know.
It's all right. Everyone feels that way. Margot's so good. She's sweet and bright and beautiful, and I'm not.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, no, I'm not. I know that. I know quite well that I'm not a beauty. I never have been and never shall be.
I don't agree at all. I think you're pretty.
That's not true.
And another thing, you've changed. From at first, I mean.
I have?
I used to think you were awful noisy.
And what do you think now, Peter? How have I changed?
Well, you're quieter.
I'm glad you don't just hate me.
I never said that.
I bet when you get out of here, you'll never think of me again.
That's crazy.
When you get back with all of your friends, you're going to say, now what did I ever see in that Mrs. Quack Quack?
I haven't got any friends.
Oh, Peter, of course you have. Everyone has friends.
Not me. I don't want any. I get along all right without them.
Does that mean you can get along without me? I think of myself as your friend.
No. If they were all like you, it'd be different.
Peter, did you ever kiss a girl?
Yes. Once.
That picture's crooked. Was she pretty?
Huh?
The girl that you kissed?
I don't know. I was blindfolded. It was at a party. One of those kissing games.
Oh. I don't suppose that really counts, does it?
It didn't with me.
I've been kissed twice. Once a man I'd never seen before kissed me on the cheek when he picked me up off the ice and I was crying. And the other was Mr. Couffuis, a friend of Father's who kissed my hand. You wouldn't say those counted, would you?
I wouldn't say so.
I know almost for certain that Margot would never kiss anyone unless she was engaged to them. And I'm sure, too, that Mother never touched a man before Pim. But I don't know. Things are so different now. What do you think? Do you think a girl shouldn't kiss anyone except if she's engaged or something? It's so hard to try to think what to do when here we are with the whole world falling around our ears. And you think, well, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and what do you think?
I suppose it'd depend on the girl. Some girls, anything they do is wrong. But others, well, it wouldn't necessarily be wrong with them. I've always thought that when two people...
9 o'clock, I have to go.
That's right.
Good night.
You won't let them stop you coming?
No. Sometime I might bring my diary. There are so many things in it that I want to talk over with you. There's a lot about you.
What kind of thing?
I wouldn't want you to see some of it. I thought you were a nothing, just the way you thought about me.
Did you change your mind the way I changed my mind about you?
Well, you'll see.
For a second, Anne stands looking up at Peter, longing for him to kiss her. As he makes no move, she turns away. Then, suddenly, Peter grabs her awkwardly in his arms, kissing her on the cheek. Anne walks out dazed. She stands for a minute, her back to the people in the main room. As she regains her poise, she goes to her mother and father and Margot, silently kissing them. They murmur their good nights to her. As she is about to open her bedroom door, she catches sight of Mrs. Van Daan. She goes quickly to her, taking her face in her hands and kissing her first on one cheek and then on the other. Then she hurries off into her room. Mrs. Van Daan looks after her, and then looks over at Peter's room. Her suspicions are confirmed.
Aha!
By this time, we all know each other so well that if anyone starts to tell a story, the rest can finish it for him. We're having to cut down still further on our meals. What makes it worse, the rats have been at work again. They've carried off some of our precious food. Even Mr. Dussel wishes now that Mushi was here. Thursday, the 20th of April, 1944. Invasion fever is mounting every day. Miep tells us that people outside talk of nothing else. For myself, life has become much more pleasant. I often go to Peter's room after supper. Oh, don't think I'm in love, because I'm not. But it does make life more bearable to have someone with whom you can exchange views. No more tonight. P.S. I must be honest. I must confess that I actually live for the next meeting. Is there anything lovelier than to sit under the skylight and feel the sun on your cheeks and have a darling boy in your arms? I admit now that I'm glad the Van Daans had a son and not a daughter. I've outgrown another dress. That's the third. I'm having to wear Margot's clothes after all. I'm working hard on my French, and I'm now reading La Belle Nivernaise.